Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Teague Take Podcast with George Teague. I am IndyCar Tim alongside George and JT. We want to welcome everybody into another episode, and we've got a great show for you again today, and it's a basketball heavy show, as we've got a wonderful former Buck, former Jayhawk great. He also played for the Rockets, the Pistons, the Cavs, and the Warriors. He was also an assistant coach with our Dallas Mavericks back in 02 and 03. George, I offer you the great Paul Mokeski. How are you, Paul?
Good to see you.
Welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
George,
in between college games right now, Gonzaga went to work today.
I see that. And George said that you were booked, and I said, well, he's a basketball guy, right?
That's right. Hey, Paul, thank you for coming on, man. We really appreciate it. I know you got, other than me being a fan of yours, that we got some very special people probably listening to us tonight. I don't know if I mentioned this, but so Paul and I
can't hear you.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
How about now? You got us, Paul?
I can hear you. I couldn't hear George's question.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I haven't got to it yet because I wanted to tell you that that we met a long time ago when I was in Green Bay, actually playing for the Packers then, and we got a mutual friend, family in the Sly family up there. So I need to go ahead and give him his shout out. Old Donnie and Rebecca and Daryl and Jimmy. Some good old buddies of ours up there. And I'm sure he'll be texting you probably in the middle of the show, Paul. So don't let that old.
You can't say his name. You have to say it like my kids say his whole name, Donnie Sly. Just Donnie Sly.
That's right. I don't know if JT calls him Donnie Sly all the time too, or if you just say
just Donnie.
Just Donnie. Yeah. So Donnie, and so I'm gonna go ahead and ask my one question about him now because I know he's itching to find out what I'm going to say about him before we get to some really good basketball stuff. Because Donnie thinks he's like the best racquetball player ever.
And the best, he thought he was Del Harris. He had that silver hair, so he thought he was Del Harris.
well, yeah. And so, who do you think will win a basketball game if he had to match up with Donnie Nelson? Who would win, Donnie Nelson or Donnie Sly?
Donnie Nelson would back him down into the post. and Donnie Sly would have those old knee pads on, and he'd have elbow pads on.
Oh, man. I know Tim wants to talk some old Maverick stuff with you. Don't you, Tim?
Yeah, Paul. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty passionate about my Mavs. I have been for quite some time. I remember when the franchise started here in Dallas. I remember when they broke ground on Reunion Arena. And I loved the early days of the early 80s. I was a big Tarpley, Blackman, Harper fan. I wanted to get your opinion on kind of the state of the franchise now since Dirk is gone. Of course, we've got 77, a generational talent, and I'm hoping the Mavericks can keep him happy roster wise to keep him here. I wanted to get your opinion of the current roster with Doncic and Porzingis. Of course, they just made the trade for Redick, who's injured and not playing yet. But do you think the Mavericks need to keep adding more pieces here? Can we win a title with a combination of Doncic, Porzingis, and Redick as our top three players?
No.
That was quick.
I mean, that's the short answer. I mean, the Mavericks have two solid pieces at two different positions, a 7-3 position and a point guard I saw him standing next to LeBron a month ago. He's almost the same size as LeBron. He's 6'8", 230, so skilled. So you have two foundations right there. and one is 22 years old and one is 25 years old. But the backup singers per se are not good enough to even compete, against the Lakers, the Clippers, the Utahs. Denver made a couple moves also. They can't compete with those rosters in the West at all. They need to. I see there's a youth movement. The only guy of consequence that is in their rotation right now that's over 30 years old is Redick, who's 36. Everybody else is 29 or younger. So they have a good basis, but to make a run at the NBA Finals is you got to have a lot of horses. They have to have experience, and they have to have skill. I mean, look at how Brooklyn's loaded up. I mean, people are giving them so much crap, and for getting loading up with all-stars who aren't really all-stars anymore, but they know what it takes to beat the Lakers or the Clippers or Utah. It takes that, and Dallas is just not there yet. I'm hoping they're going to have to. There's going to have to be some kind of shift here pretty soon. I do not think they should give up on Luka and Porzingis. I think even though Porzingis is hurt a lot of the time, but he's just he's called the unicorn for a reason. He's 7'3", and it blows my mind now how these guys are taking up for what Curry's doing, what has been doing, and shooting 5 feet behind the 3-point line after they come across half court. I mean, and Porzingis is one of those guys now. So is Luka. So, but they're going to have some way to find some more experience, some more talent to make a serious run in the playoffs at all. And as we know, trades are hard to do now. Because you have to match up, you have to give up a lot to get a lot. So really, you saw it happen. The buyout season in the NBA is the most important season. It's like the transfer season, the transfer portal in college basketball now. I mean, that's everything. I mean, when you look at the teams still playing in college, how many transfers are there on all the teams? I mean, George, when we played in college, you never transferred. Now it's just an everyday. So, in my opinion, the Mavericks are going to have to come up with some kind of out-of-the-box thinking to make some kind of move to get at least one more big-time star, and hopefully those young guys come along.
So two things. First, Paul might have misled y'all because of his statement when he said when we played in college. First of all, I didn't play in college in the same era that you played in college, so don't try to put me back there.
You said it was a while ago, though. You didn't transfer like that.
A while ago, it wasn't like that. And I see, Mr.
Once you get over 50, George, it's all the same, man.
Well, I'm not over 50 yet. I'm not over 50 yet. I am 50. I see
Technically,
Craig.
you're over 50.
Well, okay. Well, give me a couple days or something, right? But y'all see Mr. Young in here already saying Houston gonna win it all. We'll probably get into that a little bit later. I'd like to hear.
Did we save that screenshot for him?
Oh, I have it. Yes, he did save it. We have it.
Yeah, we need to address that.
So, Tim, he threw you a softball, man. Paul threw you another softball on another question that you said we probably need to know about these.
Well,
these
go ahead.
super teams. Now, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was gonna go down the Donnie and Cuban path here real quick before we get into the fiasco in the NBA that's called super teams. So you of course worked for the team, Paul, and I mean it's been a while since you were there, but you worked with both Donnie and Mark, and you probably had a good feel as an assistant on the club for the organizational setup there. So who has more to do with this thing as far as trades, draft, and it may be different now than it was back then, but at least when you were associated with the club, we all give Donnie credit. Of course, he is the foreign player whisperer. He goes out and him and his dad was the same way, man. They could find a needle in a haystack in Croatia or whatever country it was to go find somebody. But as far as the everyday trades, the every year draft, who do you think has more to do with that at this point in the organization?
Well, when I got there, I think it was Mark's second or third year. And they had finally, the year before I got there, they had finally beat a team in the playoffs. They beat Utah in the first round. So they were on the upswing. I had I played for Don Nelson for 7 of my 12 years, and Del Harris was the other assistant. I played for him for 4 of my other 12 years. So I knew those guys inside and out. And I knew Donnie Nelson when he was a little kid. He was around practice when I was with the Milwaukee Bucks. And when I got to Dallas, I knew the outside the box thinker that Nelly is and always has been. You're talking about defensive rotations. You're talking about small ball. You're talking about point forwards. That was him. That was him back there. I mean, everyone thought when the Warriors won with small ball a few years ago, wow, that's amazing. We played small ball, back then. So I knew that they had talent. And then I saw Steve Nash and Mike Finley and of course, Dirk for the first week in training camp. I'm like, whoa. But being in the meeting rooms and ultimately in the draft room with Mark Cuban was very, very interesting. There was kind of a power struggle going. Don Nelson was one of the only people really in the basketball world that Mark really trusted and thought he could trust him and make decisions. But after about 3 years, that kind of got a little, where they were butting heads a little bit. But now I think since Mark is a family man, and I think he stepped away more now. You could see it the 5 years I was there. That first year I was there, he was at every practice and every shoot around and almost every game. When I left 5 years later, he wasn't at most practices. He was at a lot of the games. So he's kind of stepped back, and I think that allows Donnie to step forward a little bit more. Mark has taken his hands off the wheel a little bit, but they still have his imprints on him. I mean, Mark's an interesting guy. I mean, he's a genius in many ways. I mean, I remember we're sitting in the locker room after a game and we're eating our food with Rolando Blackman, myself, Mark, and somebody else. And he was looking at the big screen TV and he said, see that channel right there? I think it was, I don't know if it was horse racing or something. He said, that's HD TV. That's high definition. And that's going to be the future. And we're like, yeah, right. So you got to buy a box for $150 and they got 4 channels and you're going to, no, it's not. And, he owns that. I mean, that's how, forward he thinks. And, he was amazing to watch. He bought the Mavericks for $238 million. It's worth $4 billion now. The guy was interesting to work for now. It wasn't easy all the time, but he was a godsend for the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, they were in trouble. You know that. They were in trouble before he took over.
Yeah, we were just coming away from the Jason Kidd, Jim Jackson, Jamal Mashburn trio that we thought was going to be our saving grace and lead us to our first championship. And then they got into girl trouble between the 3 of them, and it just was downhill from there. And just was not good times with the Mavericks like we thought it was going to be. But I've got a Don Nelson story, and I don't know if this was while you were here, Paul, with and I can't remember what the circumstances were, but it kind of gives you an idea of the sense of humor that Don has. And of course, we called Don in the media when he was here Big Whistle, and Donnie was Little Whistle. But he was suspended. Big Don got suspended for something. I can't remember what it was, where he couldn't attend I don't know if it was just one game. It might have been just one game.
No, he was suspended because there was a Euro camp in Treviso, Italy. I coached in it for 3 years, and he and Del Harris were at the camp, and it was fine looking at young Dirk Nowitzki's. But then they went off it was at Benetton in Treviso, and they went off and went to see somebody else work out that wasn't an open workout, and that's where they got caught doing that. That's what they were suspended in.
Gotcha. So he decided to host, and it was along with a radio station that I was associated with at the time, to host a watching party for the fans. And it was at Dave & Buster's out on Composite here in Dallas. And he shows up in a prison uniform with the stripes, the horizontal, black and white stripes, and the old timey prison hat on and stuff, just to poke fun at himself and the situation and everything. And ordering Bud Lights by the bucket, and he bought everybody beer. There's probably 50 or 60 of us there, and just, man, the only time I ever had an interaction with him, but you couldn't have been a nicer guy. And man, I know last I heard he was living out in Hawaii, grew his hair out, looking like a hippie. Have you had any contact with him recently? Is he still out there living the dream?
Yeah, I'll get to another story. Remind me to tell you about Nelly in Milwaukee. But yeah, I mean, Sidney Moncrief and Jack Sikma were just inducted into the Hall of Fame last year, and Nelly came to the Hall of Fame, and no one recognized him. He had long, slick back hair. He had a little goatee. You know, he looked like Miami Vice or something. I'm like, who is that guy? He was thin. He wasn't heavy. But yeah, he's still. You know, he lives in Maui. He's got property there. And he plays poker every week with Alice Cooper and a couple other people. They play golf all the time. He's a big golfer. But when I was in Milwaukee, you talk about the jail outfit. When I was in Milwaukee, he wanted to wear tennis shoes. He wore Converse tennis shoes to coach him. And the league was all up in arms. You can't do that. They were the black Converse, and you can't use a logo on your shoes as a coach. So what he did, instead of wearing other shoes, he just taped up an X over the Converse logo, and he got more attention for that than he did for wearing them regular. And he also wore, I don't know if you should look back in there, he called fish ties. He wore ties of fishes like pike and trout, and they were fish ties. And he made a company in Milwaukee millions of dollars that were selling these fish ties. He wore them coaching NBA games.
I remember the fish ties here in Dallas for sure.
Yeah.
Man, we sure miss Don, and man, I couldn't feel better about Donnie and the things that he's accomplished here. You know, since he stayed after his dad left, and of course Cuban. Have all the love for Cuban. Moving on to the NBA, and I'm sure we want to pick your brain about the tournament too, real quick. But before we jump into that, so I'm not a fan of the so-called super teams. You know, and I think LeBron probably started this when he jumped ship and took his talents to South Beach from Cleveland the first time around, and was recruiting Chris Bosh to come down with him. And of course, they formed that super team, and they were going to win 7 titles. Well, of course, it didn't happen. They went to a bunch in a row, but they didn't win quite 7. Do you think that, and that trend continues, by the way, that you've always got buddies in the league trying to recruit each other? Hey, let's go join this team together this offseason or when we're free agents. Do you think that's good for the league, or can that be healthy and help sustain the league like that?
I don't know if I think it's healthy or not. I mean, let's be straight up. The league, the NBA has never been a level playing field ever. There's always been the Lakers and the Celtics and the Sixers and whoever it was, and then everybody else. That's the way it's always been. But now, what I think's happened with the super teams is the players that were, 10 years ago, 15 years ago in AAU, playing in AAU, and they got people on their teams from other areas and other states, and then they got fun playing with each other, and they won, and they were successful. I think that carried over into college somewhat, but really in the pros now. And it's just a different mentality. I mean, could you imagine Larry Bird going to the Lakers and playing with Magic? I mean, come on, that's never going to happen. How about Bill Laimbeer going to the Bucks and playing with them? That's not going to happen. But now I think the feeling overall with players in the league is kind of more laid back, more business-like. The money is humongous. I saw on ESPN that people are all over the Nets. They got Blake Griffin, who, what a great quote he had. Everybody told me I was done and couldn't play for the last 2 years. Now they're all upset I went to Brooklyn. I mean, he's a role player now, a good one, 12 points and 6 boards, and they're all up in arms. And then when they picked up Aldridge off the buyout pile, who is a little more effective now and a little younger, they caught all that grief. But at this point, I mean, if you're Aldridge or Blake Griffin, you probably made about $200 million, not even counting sponsors. So probably double that. You made $400 million in your life, and you haven't made it into the finals yet and made a championship and got a ring. Why not? I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, it's just the way it is, and it is what it is. But the game has changed. I mean, I went through the rosters after the buyout season and the free agent season. I mean, if you're looking at 2 teams that rosters are loaded. You know, the Nets have Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Joe Harris is playing a heck of a year. KD, if he's healthy, we don't know how healthy he is. That's what when they picked up Aldridge, my mind went to, is KD really not hurt worse than he's letting on? Aldridge, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Jeff Green, and then Shamet, who's a good backup point guard. I mean, wow, that's and then you got the Lakers with Dennis Schroeder, LeBron, AD, and they picked up Andre Drummond, Kyle Kuzma, Wesley Matthews, Alex Caruso. I mean, those are the teams, when you look at their rosters, they're going to be in the finals. However, the finals aren't played on paper. They're played on the court, and injuries, as we know, are playing a huge role. I mean, is AD more hurt than he's letting on? I mean, when's the last time you heard an AD report, how he's doing when he's coming back, let alone LeBron's going to be out for another month. So, there are still, Nets and Lakers are the favorites on paper. But, you're looking at Denver, Utah, Philly, of course. Boston's taking a dive for some reason. But all those teams, if the things are lined up right, can win the championship. So I don't know, super teams or not. It does affect it. I think there's more feast and famine now than there was. It used to be every team with the salary cap had two guys like a Magic and a Jabbar and someone like that, and then all the other people. Now that with the salary caps the way they are, you can get three stars that are making $20 million a piece or $30 million a piece, and still have enough salary cap to get some really good players.
Man, the dollar figures just boggle my mind these days, and all.
Man. I should have stayed with basketball. I was really good at I just sort of, but then I stood by someone like Paul. Go ahead, Paul. What were you say?
I'm a basketball guy. I pay attention, and I look at some of these names. Like, who's that guy? And I look him up, and he's making $15 million. I don't know who he is.
Sitting down at the end of the bench.
Yeah, it's like what happened? Yeah. How did he get that?
A bunch of backup quarterbacks. But and I was kidding about this. And when you get around these guys, and I know we got a lot of fans and stuff, but even when I stood up next to Paul, you don't realize how big this dude is, man. It's hard to even picture what a 7-footer looks like, And then he had those two teenage boys at that time that were skying over me. I don't even know how tall they are now, but good Lord, right? And so I want to say this, and I want to ask you a question before we go to break. One of the things that Paul and some others allowed me to have the opportunity to be able to get into the locker room at the Mavericks, right? And JT, I don't even know if you can even picture this or fathom this, but some of the things people don't know is how different a locker room has to be for people like 7 feet tall. JT, you probably could not even use the urinal in that place because they are so high. That was the first time I really noticed. I was like, oh my God, the urinal's like in your face or whatever. Like, oh my gosh, what is this? I got to go over here and sit down, man. You know what I mean? Golly. So it's just very different. I need to come visit your house, Paul, and see what your house looks like.
I did. Like you guys are like the taping table in the Dallas Mavericks locker room is like 5 feet off the ground, because it's made for them. But when I was in Milwaukee towards the end, and I had our sons, I had a bigger condo on a golf course that I kind of had cut. I had the doors made higher, the cabinets made a little higher, and I found out that you can't resell that. So like, all these little ladies are coming in, and they're like, wait a minute. So we have a nice little house here in Vegas, but I leave it like it is now. I'll adjust.
Yeah, you're bending over all the time now. Now your back's hurting because you're trying to get down there. Grab one of those pots. But okay, well, I thought I was going to ask another question, but we're right here about at the break, Tim.
Okay.
We probably need to go ahead and get it.
You're going to join us the rest of the show, right? You're hanging on with us?
He's hanging in.
That's what I do.
Yes, sir. He's going to hang in, and we need everyone else to hang in too. Y'all make sure y'all pay attention because we got to talk about this stuff, man, coming out of the segment about how did NCAA go wrong, man? Man, with this weight room and the ladies? I don't know. We got to talk about it coming out of the break.
We'll be back.
For your personal and commercial needs. Websites built, prepared, secured, maintained, and found. Brent Thomas and ProfoundSites.com provide e-commerce development, website development, online marketing, web, mobile, and e-commerce consulting. With over 10 years experience, Profound Sites is responsible for creating GeorgeTeague.com, where you can hear Teague's Take with George Teague every week. Brent Thomas and Profound Sites can take you through the entire pain-free process of building your new website. From initial discussion to planning, design, to coding, and making your site live and discoverable on the internet. Contact Brent Thomas at ProfoundSites.com or email him at brent@ProfoundSites.com.
Hey, sports and sports memorabilia fans, this is IndyCar Tim. I want to talk to you about our new friend Chris Gordon over at the Cowboy House, cowboyhousesports.com on the web. Now, Chris is super passionate about all sports, and that's why the Cowboy House is so much more than just a Dallas Cowboys sports memorabilia store. He's got unique game-used memorabilia and rare, hard-to-find autographs for teams across the globe. Everything from the NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, golf, UFC, soccer, Olympics, even from Hollywood and the political sector. And his store isn't just a fancy mall store. It's more of a man cave that he likes to share with his friends and customers. Come on into the store at 209 South Shady Shores Drive, Suite 200 in Lake Dallas, and you can walk on the Texas Stadium end zone turf. You can sit in a chair from Yankee Stadium or Texas Rangers Globe Life Park. Check out hundreds of autographed jerseys from hundreds of teams. Check out thousands of photos signed with certificates of authenticity. He's also got custom framing for all of your sports memorabilia items. Chris Gordon over at cowboyhousesports.com, 214-551-5978. Thank you, Cowboy House.
Need a one-stop shop for Cowboys news happening over at the Star in Frisco? Click on over to cowboyssi.com, featuring Mike Fisher with 30 years experience covering America's team. It's the most popular of all Sports Illustrated sites and home to the Cowboys Blitzcast podcast. Cowboyssi.com is the place to get inside your Cowboys. With such a talented team of writers and reporters over there, you'll always know the latest about personnel and roster moves, salary cap issues, and draft class status. Click on over to cowboyssi.com and get the inside scoop on America's team.
3R Sports Graphics. Hello, everybody. You've probably seen the graphics that are out on social media every week that announce the guest for Teague's Take for that week, as well as their credentials listed there on the graphic as well. Those come from our good friend Tyler Sanders over at 3R Sports Graphics. Now, he only works for schools, so we need to mention that. Some of his proud schools are Liberty Christian, Parish Episcopal, Legacy Christian, and Fort Worth Christian. These are custom graphics for your school's athletic department. Hire Tyler Sanders and 3R Sports Graphics, and you will work one-on-one with a graphic designer. You will get final score graphics the night of the game, unlimited graphics with a 1-year contract, and you can fulfill the sports information director role of a school, but for a fraction of the cost. And he will handle this for you every week. He puts it out on social media for you as well. He handles that. Give Tyler Sanders a call with 3R Sports Graphics, 713-933-9767, or you can shoot him an email, tsanders2405@gmail.com. Tyler Sanders, 3R Sports Graphics, on Twitter at 3R Sports and the number 1. And check out his Twitter feed. He's got all of the examples. You can scroll through his feed and look at all of the graphics as he's done for everybody. Tyler Sanders, 3R Sports Graphics. Give him a call now. Thank you, Tyler. Welcome back into Teague's Take, everybody, for the second half of the show. The great Paul Mokeski is going to stay on with us for the rest of the show, and we're having nothing but fun talking NBA, talking Dallas Mavericks, some old school Don Nelson stories breaking through here. Man, it's so good to talk about Don. Miss those days back then. But right now, it's time for this.
And now it's time for America's favorite segment, Money Matters with JT.
Take it away, JT.
All right, so last week we had talked about the debacle that the NCAA had with the women's tournament and their workout facilities. So they, just like the men's tournament, they are required to be in a bubble which was a 3-week bubble, and a young lady from the University of Oregon. I can't remember what her name is, and I've got so many tabs open of all of my notes. So I apologize for not remembering her name, but I have too many Title IX tabs open to find it at the moment. But she made a TikTok video that ended up going viral about what their workout facility, air quotes, was. And it was a room that had, quote unquote, sanitized yoga mats and dumbbells up to 30 pounds. It looked like one tree of dumbbells up 30 pounds. In contrast to the men's tournament, which had weights of all shapes, sizes, powerlifting things. Oh, Paul is not able to hear me.
Just keep going. We're
Okay. And this sparked outrage among coaches, players, and fans alike that all were upset about this. So the original question that was asked for me to cover was, how does something like this happen? I don't know. I've been reading article after article after article. The only thing that I can say is that it is, to me, it seems like it's just that the NCAA does not care. That's how it happens.
Well, that room looked like an afterthought for the women's side of the tournament.
Yeah,
you know,
and to make matters worse, the NCAA originally said, which I don't even know why they try to do this. They originally said the room was not big enough. There was not enough space in order to have what the men had, which all it took was somebody else that was in the bubble for 3 weeks to take a picture of it and be like, nah, there's plenty of space in this ballroom to have weights. And then they wanted to say, well, that room wasn't exactly supposed to be where the weight training was supposed to be. This was supposed to be the room where you do some tone up stuff before you take the court, which then again, they were like, well, where is the weight room then? If this is not it, where is it?
How does it happen though? How does that happen? I don't know. Maybe Paul got some kind of, how can you just miss that bad? I could see it maybe not being as nice, but just 4 sets of dumbbells, 1 training table, and a couple yoga mats.
I don't think it was a miss. I honestly think that the people in charge did not care. I mean, if you saw the food that was being served to them versus the food that the men were getting, I mean, even the swag bags were subpar. And, everybody wants to point to, well, the women's tournament doesn't generate any kind of revenue. And then you got the other people saying Title IX things. And what it all boils down to is, I think, the ultimate hypocrisy that is the NCAA. The NCAA rewards men's teams for winning basketball games in the tournament. Between 1999, I believe, and 2018, they paid over $1 billion with a B, dollars in to the Power 5 conferences for winning games in the tournament. They have not paid 1 red cent to any women's team that has ever won a game in the NCAA tournament since its inception in 1982. But the real crux of the issue, hold on, a couple side points. We already know that the NCAA is more hypocritical than we think Roger Goodell is when it comes to handing out punishments. Penn State got absolutely ransacked for what they said Larry Sandusky did and Joe Paterno under his watch, but Larry Nassar was able to do essentially the same thing, and not a peep was said. Nothing happened to Michigan State. Baylor had a huge sexual harassment problem. Ain't nothing happened to them. But God forbid some tutors from Missouri accidentally tutor a person when they weren't supposed to, and they got postseason bans. Like, so it the NCAA has gone out of its way to lobby against them being held to a Title IX standard. Uh, they had a court case that failed the first time, and then in 1999, the Supreme Court ruled essentially that the individual schools are to abide by Title IX rules, and the NCAA does not have to. And as much as the NCAA wants to put things in their bylaws about gender equality and having the same opportunity, and they have all these requirements. I think it's for anybody that wants to fact check. It's their NCAA publications, Appendix A, subsection D. They have a clause in there about equal opportunity, which includes it is Appendix A, Subpart D, Paragraph C, Part 2, the provision of equipment and supplies. It says that explicitly. And the NCAA is seemingly unwilling to follow its own guidelines that has been set out, and they know that they cannot be held liable for it. And because of the hubris that these people sit up that try to piggyback off of the student athlete to make billions of dollars, they will not, and they do not have, they don't have the care to make sure that things like this don't happen. I don't care what Mark Emmert says, this will happen again at some point.
I'm trying to interrupt you because I opened up a can of worms. See, when we talked about this yesterday, or last week, actually, about this, and we were talking to JT about it. He's like, "Oh, I don't know enough about it." And man, I tell you what, he did his research and he nailed it out of the park. We only got a couple more minutes left on this segment, but I kind of want to ask Paul what he thought about this. Just as a coach, and is anybody even taking a fall for this, I guess, or got the blame or whatnot? What do you think, Paul? What happened with this? Guess he can't hear me still.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't hear you, George. I couldn't hear what you were saying. Sorry.
Someone asked him that question. Can y'all hear them? Can you hear them?
Yeah, so he asked, is essentially, how did this happen? Is anybody taking the blame for or taking the fall for this? What do you think are the circumstances around something that allowed this to happen?
Well, I think it's been like you have been talking about, JT. It's been happening for a long time, and they paid lip service to it in the past and tried to make up for some of it. But in the long run, when you have an entity that is judge and jury, where the highest court in the land is the only thing that can hold them accountable, then there's problems that can occur when they're not held accountable.
And the highest court in the land has already told them that they will not hold them accountable.
Yeah, which is even scarier. I mean, I thought it was like 5 or 6 years ago, where Notre Dame used to be the independent football team, and they would play whoever they wanted and do their own advertisement and do all. I thought about 5 or 6 years ago the NCAA was going to lose football. I thought teams like Alabama and Notre Dame and USC and whatever the 15 highest ones could start their own league, right? Like they could combine and just do their own thing and say, hey, we're done with the NCAA. We're going to make our own rules. We're going to do it the right way, and we're going to do this. And I think it's getting more and more like that. In basketball, with the athletes being able to be compensated for their likeness, whatever that will be. Who dictates that? NCAA? Well,
Right.
I think it's more and more. The NCAA has been in trouble for a while, and this latest incident of the weight room situation has just brought it up to under the magnifying glass again. And I don't know if they're capable of fixing it.
And so, JT, I don't know if you at the very beginning, if you did, I missed it, but the fact that they're hiring an independent law firm to review
who specializes in Title
gender
IX, supposedly.
equity. Yeah, for a gender equity review within the NCAA. I mean, you're digging your own grave here, right?
I see this as what happened with this is very parallel to what happened with Les Miles and LSU, how they did their independent. They brought in some independent law firm to do their little Title IX things, and they wrote up this long article of many things of that LSU had did wrong. And they were like, hey, don't do this, fix this, fix that. And of course, what happened? Nothing happened. They stuffed it in a bin and said, all right, we did the investigation. Les Miles isn't here anymore. Whatever. It's fine. And, unfortunately, until it happens again, they have done what they needed to do, seemingly, to appease the public for now.
Yeah, I mean,
they got the weight room in, and they're doing an investigation, and nothing will change.
I don't want to attack anybody or anything, but let's just think of what happens in college basketball, and and he's a great coach, and he's got great programs. But John Calipari has bounced from school to school, and those schools have ended up giving all their victories back, all their championships back, all their money back, and he's still at one of the highest universities in the country. It's mind-boggling. It always becomes somebody else's problem, I guess.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah,
I hope
there's a few coaches like that.
For the sake of the young ladies, in equity and all the things that we're facing in our society today, there's no real reason for me to something this bad. I mean, it shouldn't happen at all. But just to have that, it was unbelievable. I mean, just to even see it when I saw the video, I was like, this can't be right. I had my athletic director's hat on and all that kind of stuff, and I just immediately wondered, man, how would that go down with me as an AD, and what would the conversation be to whoever was in charge who was supposed to, make it right. So I'm glad that they did fix it immediately, because that was my next thing. I was worried about what was it going to look like. Were they going to try to push this off and just say, okay, we'll get it right next year? But at least they rolled the truck up, went down to the Busybody or Sports Academy or whatever and picked up some stuff. And
Busybody. Yourself there.
Hey, guys, just so you know, I'm only hearing you, JT. So I'm kind of.
Oh,
I can't. Yeah. So I'm only hearing you, but
so
if you can paraphrase a little stuff, I can't hear anybody else.
Yeah, JT is the podcast translator anyway for us, so he'll do.
George just said some brilliant stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how we fix that.
I don't either. But we got to get into some more NCAA stuff, because you guys mentioned about people being out. So,
yep. George, I'm sorry.
So we want to start with.
I was going to play the funeral march.
Okay.
Kansas too.
Yeah, but KU, he can't say KU went first, and so you know what? Before we talk about Bama, we need to ask him what's going on with his KU people, because they've been, they got a strong history of being good.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is about KU. He's asking very softball questions, but I'm gonna ask you the real question. Why is it that Kansas, since like 2008, chokes all the time when it comes to getting to the Sweet 16 and into the Elite Eight?
It frustrates me, and as an alumni and former player there, and we used to always lament because we couldn't make any free throws. It's like, why can't we make free throws? And then then it's 17 Big 12 championships in a row. It's like, it's just crazy. But then you need to get to that next level, and a lot of I've been coaching for 25 years, and I coached at USC for a year. I coached in college for a little bit. I coached in NBA, and I've coached internationally. And in my opinion, a lot of college coaches are not flexible with what they do or adjustable. I mean, we just saw Eric Musselman, who has a history in the NBA and minor league. I coached against him in the CBA. I coached him in, he the 2 games ago when they beat, I can't remember, the other team that they just beat, they had a point guard that was killing them. So what Muss did was just trap him at half court and get the ball out of his hand and make some other player make a play, and they ended up winning the game. But a lot of coaches don't think that way in college, and I'm frustrated because I know KU had a really, really good shot at it last year, and then COVID stepped in and messed up a lot of things. And this year, I think they were overrated. I don't think they had the talent level. They lost their big. They weren't as good as shooters as they were before, and that's Alabama's proof. Kansas not so much this year, but in past years, where in the NCAA March Madness, it's March Madness because on any given night, there are 18, 19-year-old kids, and anyone can win that game on one night. That's why there's 5 and 7 game series in the NBA, because if Alabama plays UCLA in the 7 game series this year, they probably win the series. So but in college, I mean, if I'm a pro coach for the most part, and sometimes I get frustrated when college coaches can't be adaptable and actually change their mindset a little bit to either their personnel or the people they're playing.
Yeah. So Tim, I guess I just have to ask you: did you make this your little not flyer, your banner here immediately after the game? Did you go right in the StreamYard and just build this banner? Like,
I just did it right now because you wanted to talk about it.
Well, since the score is up here.
Speaking of free throws and missing free throws.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me how you can, as a team, you can shoot, we'll say 37.5 to 40% from 3, but you hit 11 of 25 free throws? How does that happen? And speaking of being adaptable, not that I'm saying Nate Oates is a bad coach, because clearly he's not taking Alabama from what they were to what they are right now. I was frustrated because Herb Jones was in the game late. I was frustrated. I understand he was on the floor for defense, but he couldn't make a basket to save his life. He couldn't make a free throw. And then here he is with, a minute left in the game. You're down by 2, and he just decides, I'm just going to shoot a 3. Like, whatever. It's fine. How do you have a team that can shoot that well from beyond the arc, but then can't stand at the free throw line and bury those?
There's a couple things. Like, there's been basketball players in the past that have in the NBA that have been great 3-point shooters and great 3-point shooters and terrible free throw shooters, which is mind-boggling because no one's guarding you. It's closer to the basket. I think that's a lot mental in players' minds. The other thing there's a couple other things that's mind-boggling that, in my opinion, college and NBA teams and coaches don't focus or work on free throws. They just think it's a given, and it's not. When we were in Dallas, we had a free throw coach. He was a shooting coach, free throw coach, and he worked with everybody. We videoed it. We watched them. You get a little repetition. So we worked on it, and we got players better. But so many coaches say, well, they either make them or they don't. Well, that costs you games. The 3-point thing is, like, analytics. People don't understand analytics. They think analytics is everybody just shoot threes. Just go shoot threes. That's not what analytics says. Analytics, the number 1 shot in analytics is a layup. The number 2 shot you want is to get to the free throw line. You drive it and you get to the free throw line. The number 3 shot is a corner 3, especially in the NBA, it's shorter. And the number 4 shot is any other 3. And the 5th shot is an out of paint 2. And the reasoning for that is because your efficiency on out of paint 2s are way if you make 33% of your threes, that's like making 50% of your twos. That's where analytics come in, and people get lost, and players get lost. They have a layup and they pass out for a three. That's not what analytics says. That you're making a mistake, and I think players get caught up in that. And the game now is so 3-point oriented that all the other basketball IQ stuff goes out the window. And so, I mean, that doesn't really answer your question, but you know, I remember when the Houston Rockets a couple of years ago went like 0 for 17 from the three against the Warriors, and they kept shooting threes. It's like, take it to the basket, take it to the basket. And now you look at, like, when I look at Giannis in Milwaukee, who's MVP of the league, he has no mid-range game. He has no. When he either shoots a three and he's not very good at it, or he drives all the way to the basket, he's a really good finisher, or he does a spin back move and he's either going to turn it over, get a charge, or maybe get a foul. But he has nothing where he can get it, put it on the floor 1 or 2 times, pull up and do a little jump shot like a Kevin Durant. So I think that's a lost art, and you know, I don't know how to get it back. I mean, if you're struggling from the three, you know, you need to get to the basket. If you're struggling from the free throw line, it's too late. You can't do it. You had to do it 3 months ago, 4 months ago to work on your free throws.
And I didn't think the free throws were going to be our downfall this year. I thought it was actually be shooting the threes that was going to be the problem. And I guess there might have been a little bit of that. But needless to say, it was a good game. You know, my heart was stuck, and I didn't get as many text messages as I thought I was going to get after the game, for as much trash as I talk about Alabama, and particularly the basketball. But that's good, man. Thank you for all your insight there, too. That's pretty good. But we're going to need to take another break so we can wrap up this last segment. Talk a little bit more about the MVP race in the NBA.
Yep, we'll be back.
Time inside your home, noticing all the little things needing attention? Let Repair Resource be your one trusted contractor to tackle all of your home repair needs. They do it all: electrical, plumbing, drywall, painting, and flooring of all types. They can even handle your exterior needs, like fencing, patio covers, concrete pads, and decking. No job too big or small. Repair Resource does it all. Call them at 972-415-1198 or visit them online at www.repair-resource.com.
Hey, this is IndyCar Tim. I want to talk to you about the Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, Texas. It's North Dallas's premier sports bar and grill, located at 1616 West Hebron Parkway. It's 16 minutes from just about anywhere in the DFW Metroplex. With all of the live action on dozens of TVs and the big screen, it's the place to hang out and watch the return of sports with all your friends. Friday and Saturday nights, you'll find the best live music in DFW right there at the Maverick Bar. And of course, on Thursday nights at 6 p.m., you'll find Teague's Take broadcasting live with Alabama and Cowboys legend George Teague. Come hang out and be part of the show. Check out the Maverick Bar and Grill in Carrollton, 972-492-7500, or on the web at themaverickbar.com. Welcome, everybody, back into the Teague's Take podcast alongside George and JT and the great Paul Mokeski. I am IndyCar Tim, and we're just about towards the end of this week. We've got some more NBA stuff. Man, this has been a basketball-heavy show, hadn't it, with Paul being on, and can't think of anything better to talk about than some basketball and Mavericks and some Don Nelson stories. But, George, one more segment left for the show, and that we wanted to talk about the NBA MVP. And, JT, you may have to relay all of this to our guest. Of course, it's going to be probably between LeBron or Harden. We'd like to get Paul's thoughts on that, on this year's MVP race, if he is still with us. There he is.
Between LeBron and Harden, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Paul, so we wanted to get your thoughts on your thoughts on the MVP race between LeBron James and James Harden. Oh, Paul, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself there? There you go.
Yeah. I'm opposite of a lot of people. I'm not a LeBron James lover, but I'm a LeBron James fan, because take away what he did when he left Cleveland and went to Miami, and Cleveland hated him. Then he went back to Cleveland. They loved him again, and then he went to whatever. But I think he plays the right way. He's competitive. He makes the right pass at the right time. He's a defender. He can pass. He does all the things. James Harden, in my opinion, he's one of the hardest players in the game for me to watch. Not now, but when he was in Houston, I would drive my wife crazy because I would sit here and watch a game and count how many dribbles he would have. He had 25 dribbles in one time. I'm like, pass the ball. And he's one of the greatest offensive players, but he's playing more like I wish he played in Houston back when they were a little bit better. But I think the injury to LeBron, if he stays out another 2-3 weeks, I think he's out of the running. I think Harden's in it. Luka was there early. Giannis is there. But as of this point, if LeBron doesn't come back in the next week or so, which I don't think he will, I think Harden has a great shot at it.
Do you guys think that? And I thank him for that. Do you guys think that players in NBA petition for it? Just seems like there's so much, not just playing and hoping you get it, that they're vying for this position. Is there like some big bonuses or something that, why do these guys, fight? I'm the MVP. I'm the MVP. Why not just play? And if you get it, am I missing something with the MVP?
Ego, right? It's got to be ego.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Well, my thought on why you see NBA players vying for the MVP more so than other sports, particularly football, right? Where there are 52 players on 32 teams in the NBA or in the NFL, right? And that in any given year, there's only 32 people that are actually going to be even considered for the MVP. And if you don't play quarterback, then you just hang it up. You're not getting it. Forget it. And from there, you can lop off another. There's 32 quarterbacks. You can already lop off about 20 of them and say you're not getting it either. So I don't think I don't think you see that because it's not something that's attainable now. Because we see this with cornerbacks all the time. They will get on Twitter and they'll tweet at each other and who's the best corner, who's the best receiver. I'm the best receiver. And you see that start playing out in contracts. People start holding out because they're like, wait a minute, so-and-so just got this big deal and I'm better than he is. Like, I want that kind of money too. So I think we see it in both sports. It's just I won't say anybody in the NBA, but a lot more people can make a case to be the MVP in any given year in the NBA than any other sport.
You think so?
It seems to me, it seems to me like the NBA seems to be geared towards MVPs and all-stars, right? MVPs and all-stars. And in the NFL, it's more geared towards all-pro, right? All-pro is what you want to do because, offensive linemen, and they're not going to make MVP or anything, so they need to make all-pro. And people don't know, they don't realize that making first-team All-NBA is by far better than making an all-star team because you're one of 5 players on first team. Even second team is the 10 best player, but it's not advertised that much. You don't hear about it. You just hear about all-stars and MVPs. I think that has some to do with it too.
Would you also say that, when you're in the NBA trying to make a case that you are the best, to me, it always seems like it boils down to 2 things. How many rings do you have and how many MVPs did you win? You can be on a whole bunch of teams that have a whole bunch of rings, but you didn't win MVP and you didn't win finals MVP. So whatever, you're not. And we don't necessarily see that in the NFL where it's about how many MVPs did you win, because that's an unrealistic. You start comparing MVP numbers when you're talking about quarterbacks.
Now here's what's messed up too. And this is my what do you mean MVP? MVP is not meant for a league award. It's meant for a team award. MVP is the most valuable player on your team. So, if you take Luka off Dallas, they're not going to win. If MVP, but who is MVP of the league? There's players on teams that if you take them away from the team, they're not even going to be in the playoffs. Even though you could take someone, so MVP and the GOAT, always argument drives me crazy because in my mind, the GOAT, like MVP, is an individual award. So if you're the best single player that ever played in the NBA, in my mind, there is no question, no doubt. Just look at the numbers. It's Wilt Chamberlain.
How about to say, who is this guy?
Is
Who is this
the
guy?
best
Is that
player
him?
ever.
Wilt
He didn't win
Chamberlain?
championships.
Didn't he go to
averaged 50
KU?
and 30.
Didn't he go to
scored
KU?
100 in the game. I mean, it's I played against Michael Jordan. I did that. They're great players. But if you're like you're the best individual player. It doesn't matter how many championships. If you have the best player on Minnesota right now and he's better than LeBron, but he's not going to get MVP or the GOAT because he never won a championship. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah, tell him I agree with him, JT, about Wilt Chamberlain.
Tim agrees with you with Wilt Chamberlain.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a big guy, but I mean, just numbers. I mean, and I don't think there is a GOAT. I mean, was Wilt better than Shaq? That was better than Kareem? That was better than, was Elgin Baylor? Was Kobe better than Elgin Baylor? I mean, God rest his soul, he just passed away. I mean, the Euro step, Elgin Baylor did the Euro step in the 60s. It wasn't created in Europe. He did it.
Yep.
Didn't Wilt Chamberlain score 100 points?
Yeah.
Like that? Yeah, that's ridiculous. Good Lord.
In Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh, man. You got a little encyclopedia over there too, huh? That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Well, that's it, man. You know what? I'm proud about this because we got to talk a lot of basketball. That was another first for us on Teague's Take. Just doing lots of basketball. Tend to be football heavy. So I'm thankful. Make sure you guys tell him that he hears that I'm saying thankful. Thank you to him for coming on and leading us down the avenue we have not been on. As we get ready to close this up.
Very good. Well, so next week, George, April 6th show, it looks like you've got Eric Metcalf, return specialist, booked for the show.
Return specialist, and what do you call? Are they called cigar? What? When you're an enthusiast with cigars. Aficionado. Is that what it is? Yes. That's what
Aficionado.
Okay. I think he got his own line. I got to find out, though. But he'll be on next week, so make sure y'all come so we can talk some old DB wide receiver return specialist type stuff.
Good stuff. Well, hey, we want to thank everybody for being a part of this one on YouTube, Periscope / Twitter, on Facebook. Make sure you use the hashtag #AskTeague on any form of social media, especially on Twitter, if you want to ask him a question for the next show, or you can head on over to georgeteague.com. He's got a spot over there for Ask Teague. We'll address it on the show if we deem it to be worthy. Speaking of basketball, we'll throw out James Worthy, but I had to throw that in there as a Lakers kid in the 80s. But, yeah, we appreciate it, especially our sponsors. You heard them on the commercials. Let's throw them out there real quick. 3R Sports Graphics, Tyler over there that throws up the graphics for us on social media every week. ProfoundSites.com that built GeorgeTeague.com. CowboysSI.com, the Cowboy House and Repair Resource. Special thanks to all those boys. For George, for JT, for Paul Mokeski, the great Paul Mokeski, I'm IndyCar Tim, and we'll see you next week.